Museum of Glass presents the 7th Annual Slider Cook-Off on Saturday, March 24th. Boogie on down for some tasty sliders from 5 South Sound restaurants and see a far-out glass-blowing show featuring Mr. Awesome, John Miller. Do the hustle in your best 1970s disco threads and groove the night away to the sounds of the 90s. Tickets are available at museumofglass.org. Don't wait to get your tickets to the hottest event in town, Slider Cook-Off at the Museum of Glass. Be there or be square.
All right. Well, we want to thank you. We want to thank you for joining us in our afternoon live glass blowing demonstration. And just a heads up, our slider event is going on next Saturday. If you're looking for a fun event to do next weekend, well, you can join us down here at the Museum of Glass. We are holding a contest that day. By purchasing an entry, you're going to be able to eat all the sliders from 6 different restaurants, and you're going to be able to vote to see which one will take home the coveted 7th Annual Slider Cook-Off Award. So, just a heads up of that, I do want to begin this glass blowing demonstration by introducing myself and also the glass members you see down here, the glass blowing team. I'm also going to join them. And I do want to talk a little bit about them. Now, before we start, my name is David. Again, I'm going to be your MC here today. And I'm going to let you know what we are going to be making here today. If we stand down here, we have this beautiful pattern down here. It's called Marini. I'm actually going to begin this day by playing you guys a couple of videos. And that's just so we can understand where we're getting this Marini. The Marini was made earlier yesterday. We see these little tiles of glass. By the way, this little blue tile is what we made the blue piece after. So notice that it's the same pattern on the inside. We begin the day by pulling this Marini. We will then fill a kiln shelf full of this stuff down here, this Marini. And we have the next Marini piece actually being made down here on this kiln shelf. But on our top screen, we're seeing how we actually make this little stuff, this Marini stuff. Again, we can see the video on our top screen right now. We can see that stuff being stretched out, pulled out, that will get cooled down evenly, and then it will get chopped up. So those long bars get chopped up to smaller sections. And then we will fill those up on a kiln shelf. As you see in our top video, we have all these beautiful Marini pieces filled on a plate. The piece that we're gonna be working on here today is nice and warm. It's all together. It's sitting in our garage down here, about 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And I believe Sarah may have already pulled it out. Oh, yes. The action is continuing down here on the hot shop floor. Sarah down here has what we call a Pastorelli fork. At the end of the fork, she has a kiln shelf lined with all the small little Marinis that we're going to pick up. We're going to go ahead and roll right on the surface. So we have our Marini down here is being heated. We're actually gonna flip the plate back and forth for an even heat all the way around. But we're also using a torch. This torch is approximately 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit when we press on that little trigger. And the glass makers will use it to ensure that we have a nice, good heat all the way around. Again, we're gonna roll on the surface of this piece. So on our top screen, we're gonna see an image of what we're going to see here very shortly. The rolling of the Marini. Down here, Gabe has made what we call the collar. The collar is the clear bit that we will roll the surface on. So this is gonna be the little handle. On our top screen, we're seeing a chalk drawing of the action that we're gonna see right now. We're gonna roll this piece up right now. We're gonna begin to work on it. You can think of it as we're gonna make this cylinder right now. Although the last pieces we're doing this piece called encamo, this technique where we had a separate piece of glass. Today we're just gonna focus on the shape itself. We're not gonna worry about putting additive, decorative touches. Notice down here, We have Sarah, she's heating up the plate. She has a Kevlar glove just to help her and assist her. That fork can get quite heavy, and it is hot. We're entering a glory hole that we see down here to approximately 2,300 degrees, and we are using it to soften the glass. Right now it's quite cold, it's not malleable, so if we wish to distort it, squish it, right now we're ensuring that there's no air bubbles anywhere around. The little pieces that you saw just flying off are made out of metal. We line them with kiln wash also, however, just to ensure they don't stick. All right, well, this action will now come together. Here we go. Gabe's gonna come right over. We'll just watch as this piece comes together. And just like that, isn't that hard to believe? Maybe an hour ago, these pieces were all separate. They weren't together. They were individually on their own, but now they're together. The piece that we're gonna be making here today is a little bit different. I'm gonna bring over the Marinis that we're using. Right now, they're gonna look black, red, and orange. That's just because the heat, but I'm bringing around some Marini so we can see the actual true colors. As we continue to work on here, if you're joining us, as we continue to work, I do want to point something out. If you're wondering where the clear glass is being pulled out of, here at the museum we have two furnaces, both holding approximately 1,000 pounds of molten glass. Remember, this is a hot bowl of soup essentially. Again, it's always on. It's never turned off. That furnace is always on. It doesn't take any holiday breaks, vacations, weekends off, holiday time, sick time. Nope, it's always turned on. The furnace down here on this left-hand side is running a little low on glass, so we are getting ready to charge our furnace. Now, our pattern had laid on some kiln wash to prevent any stickiness from happening, but there's still a little bit of debris left. So we're using a diamond tip Dremel to get rid of any debris. We also sealed the very top, so if we blow air right now, it's going to expand. The air's not gonna leave. Now, as we continue to work with this, we're gonna play our color overlay as we clean up our pattern, because it's gonna take a little bit of time. And again, we do wanna ensure that there's no chip, there's no rock, there's no small little debris, that's all perfect. As the team continues to do that on our top screen, let's find out how color is applied with our color overlay.
The color in glass comes from adding various materials to the mixture of raw ingredients called batch. Most of the colorants are compounds containing some kind of metal. For example, adding cobalt to clear glass creates a deep blue. Tin and antimony can be used to create white glass, and gold chloride can produce a rich red or pink colored glass. Colored glass is melted in furnaces, just like clear glass, and then is usually rolled into bars for storage and easy application. In order to apply color bar to a bubble, we first need to preheat the color to approximately 950 or 1000 degrees Fahrenheit in a color oven or garage. Once warm, the color is then picked up on the end of a punty rod using a little bit of clear glass as a support. The color is then heated in the 2300 degree glory hole to soften it and make it malleable, while another artist creates a small bubble of clear glass on a blowpipe. Once warm, the color is dropped over the clear bubble, and then using a variety of hand tools or the steel marver, the color is rolled back over the clear in an even layer. This process is called dropping color, or creating a color overlay. Depending on the project, that bubble is then usually gathered over with clear glass and blown into the final form. The finished product may appear to be all made from colored glass, but when viewed in cross-section, we can see that there is only a thin layer of color sandwiched between many layers of clear glass.
So on the top screen, we have a quick rewind of the Marini piece that we made earlier. We're continuing the Marini fun, but again, we are going to be doing a different shape. Gabe had walked around and said that he was going to make a cooling tower shape. Kind of think about that as we continue to work on the piece here today. If you have a question at any given time, you can raise your hand or shout my name. My name is David. I'm more than happy to answer any question you might have. Yep, we are going to add more glass. If you're wondering how do we make something larger, how we make something big, all we do is we take multiple dips in our furnace. So far, we have yet to take a dip in our furnace, but once we begin, happens quite fast. This is the stage where we want to get. We want to be able to add another molten layer. So we're going to dip that inside of our hot soup of glass. And if we're going to make something large, well, that just means we're going to take a lot of layers in glass. So if we blow it bigger, it also gets thinner. And if it gets thinner, it gets more fragile. So we're going to learn a little bit about our gaffer here today. The gaffer is the person in charge, and the gaffer is usually the person that sits down in this bench. So remember, gaffer, person in charge. Gabe is our gaffer here today, and the pieces that we're making are going to be going into the store, but this is not his own personal work. I'm going to talk a little bit about Gabe, and we're going to put some of his artwork on the top screen so we can get to know him a little bit more as I talk a little bit about him and his experience. Gabe just finished up a show out in Florida where he was out there on one of his openings. He is now back here, and he's been working with glass for over 20 years. So kind of think about that as we watch. We were asked, how long does it take to get to this stage? Well, Gabe's been working with glass for over 20 years. I believe it was almost 22, 23 years now. So he's a highly talented artist, as you can see from the top screen. Our whole museum crew down here, they make their own art, and throughout the day, I'll be showing you their own art also. But just note that the Museum of Glass has some of the best glass blowers around town and around the world also. Additional layer. If Gabe feels he's gathered too much, he will hold the pipe straight down and get rid of excess glass. Typically after the gather, we will use this wooden block. The wooden block is used to ensure that the bubble will blow out nice and evenly by distributing the glass around the bubble. Now the rods that we use here, the blow pipes, they're made out of stainless steel, And stainless steel is a very poor conductor of heat, which doesn't allow the heat to be transferred all the way through. We can see Sarah down here using a pipe cooler. It's cold water that we're running on the surface of the rod, which in turn cools it down. If you're sitting on this end, you can begin to see the toll that the heat does on the rod. Notice where Sarah keeps her hand, where she's turning it towards the tip of the rod, it becomes dull gray and black, and we are not placing our hand in that area. That is the danger zone. We have our hand directly behind that area. As we watch the live glass making demonstration, I always recommend the top balcony. It's a great place to view the live glass blowing. It's also a great place to take any pictures or videos of the action going on. All the art that you see on top of there was also made here in the world famous Museum of Glass. Oh, look at all this teamwork. We have Emily down here, and she's blowing air through that blowpipe, and she's expanding the bubble. One of the shaping tools that we're using is a wet padded newspaper, and we don't burn a specific, sorry about that. So any old newspaper will do here, but the newspaper we prefer to use here is the Wall Street Journal. So we read it, fold it, drench it in water, and burn right through it. If it burns out, it's totally okay. We'll just throw it away and make a new pair. We just have water on the top layer. That's all it is. It's keeping it from catching on fire, but it is going to smoke up at points. We want them wet enough to manipulate the glass, but not so wet that they're soggy and they're falling apart. So it's a proper amount of moisture that should be going through. Now this is what glass blowing is all about, teamwork. We have been blowing through the blowpipe. Sarah's turning the rod down here. We have wooden paddles shielding the heat that the glass radiates. If you're wondering how much air is going through that blowpipe, we're blowing about the same air pressure you use to blow out a candle. It's not a lot of air, but again, it does vary. If we listen very closely, and again, I highly recommend the top balcony, there you can hear some of the communication going on. The team might be saying blow soft, or blow hard, or blow gentle. But again, it typically is about 1 or 2 PSI, but it really does vary on how much we want to expand the bubble. Now, all around the hot shop floor, we have these steel tables that we use for shaping. Traditionally, back in the olden days, these tables were made out of a solid slab of marble. That's where we get their name from, a marvering table. Nowadays, though, it's been replaced with this steel counterpart, which does the same job. One of the reasons why it's been changed, however, is because if you gather hot glass and place it right on top of a slab of marble, it can actually crack. Although it is rare, you will find some studios every now and then that do have a small slab of marble. As we continue to work, do we have any questions from the audience? Any questions? Again, I will be talking about some of the glass making that we see here today, but you can sit back, relax, and enjoy the live glass blowing. Of course, we have the full team down here turning that rod. We have Sarah, who's putting a lot of downward pressure to ensure that the pipe doesn't go up. And Emily, of course, is there with 2 wooden paddles to shield Gabe from the heat that the glass radiates off. If you're just joining us, remember that that chamber we enter is approximately 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit. So the tool that we are now using to really clean up the sides, called it Jax. Now, we slide the blades of that tool on some beeswax to prevent any stickiness. Rather, we're just slipping and sliding on that top layer. Down here, we have a furnace that is running a little low on glass. We have Nick, who's in the process of charging our furnace. So this little torch that we're using is the hottest piece of equipment on this hot shop floor. Remember that Nick down here is charging our furnace. This little glass that you see here will be placed into our furnace, and that is what we are going to be melting here to produce the glass pieces. The next step we will take is to bring over a punty. The punty is the transfer rod. It's going to be the new handle to this piece. Notice that there's a small little constriction on this piece. That is the break off. That is where we're going to break our piece free. By flipping this piece onto a different rod, we can begin to work on the opposite end. Well, Ben brought over the punty down here. We have the new handle, but we have 2 rods so far right now. We're gonna go ahead and break off our previous rod with a little bit of water. All we use is a couple drops of water. Water is extremely bad to hot glass because it causes it to crack. Look at that, all they did was 2 drops of water, a little tap, and the transfer is complete. Now we can begin to work on the opposite end. Now remember this transfer rod that we added right now? It's only temporary. It will be broken off that rod yet again when we are complete. If we did everything right, it should be able to just pop off. But again, it is a temporary rod. All right, well, we are wrapping up our shape down here. It's taking quite some time to get to this point. But however, notice that the glass, when it turns red and orange, means it's hot. So if the tip is more red and orange in the back, that just means the heat is concentrated towards the tip. To further explain some of the pieces, some of the details that we take here and some of the little small details we really do to ensure the piece won't break, remember that the rod that we have now is only temporary. It needs to break here in a little bit. It needs to cleanly break. Notice that before we enter the glory hole, we use the torch. And we use the torch right on that punty, right on that small little bit of glass. And again, we use it on the punty, because that is the place that absorbs the least energy. If it's gonna crack from somewhere, it's always gonna crack from the back part, not from the hot end. So by ensuring that that back part is staying warm enough so a crack doesn't appear, we should be good and the piece won't break. So the next step we will take is to set our finished Marini piece into the annealer. The annealer is the oven that we use to slowly bring the glass back to room temperature. We're going to be using the annealer on your right-hand side with the green number 4. It is currently sitting at 920 degrees, and we call it the front loader since we load the glass from the front. This one down here is called the top loader since we load the glass from the top. However, they all go up to that 920 degrees where they will stay. As we get ready to break this piece free, it will cool down for the next 24 hours in our annealer that will slowly climb its way back down. So before they break the piece off, they always build the heat back up. That's what the glass makers are doing now, is they're building the heat back on the punny. They want the piece to begin to move, not the actual piece itself, but right on the joint, right where the glass and the punty met. They want that to be the hottest. They want to see a little bit of movement. Once they see that movement, that means that the pieces are ready to be broken. All right, so here we go. Emily suited up in his heat protective layer. A little tap, and look at that. Just like that, this piece is complete. How fantastic. From start to finish, these Marini pieces take quite some time. If you're interested in purchasing them, you can find them out in our gallery, or in our store, I should say. Other than that, that wraps up our Marini piece. We are going to continue the fun. We have another pattern down here. If you're sitting down here, you get to see the next pattern that we will be working on. I know it's hard to understand that the color that we just saw of the glass is not the true color. We actually see the piece of glass right here. Again, we see that yellow and black glass. How fantastic. Look at the team. So we are going to work on another piece here very shortly. Right now, we are just waiting for our pattern to heat up. So our pattern is sitting in the garage about 1,000 degrees. We're going to give it a couple more minutes to heat up. But any given time, you're more than welcome to check out the top of the museum, the sides. On our top screen, however, we are going to play our slider video to give you a little bit more information about our slider event that we will be hosting next weekend.
Museum of Glass presents the 7th Annual Slider Cook-Off on Saturday, March 24th. Boogie on down for some tasty sliders from 5 South Sound restaurants and see a far-out glass-blowing show featuring Mr. Awesome, John Miller. Do the hustle in your best 1970s disco threads and groove the night away to the sounds of the 90s. Tickets are available at museumofglass.org. Don't wait to get your tickets to the hottest event in town, Slider Cook-Off at the Museum of Glass. Be there or be square.
Now, coming up, we have a couple different things coming up here at the Museum of Glass. We're going to leave this slide up here for a little bit so we can kind of understand some of the upcoming events going on at the museum. All right. Well, if you're joining us now, welcome to the Museum of Glass. From everyone down here on the Hot Shop floor, we welcome you to the Hot Shop. On the very outside, I know this museum looks very amazing and iconic, and it is an iconic building. And if you haven't had a chance to look up, I highly recommend it. We are in a beautiful, gorgeous environment. We've created here a natural chimney. Hot air can naturally rise, and we have a fan up there that just sucks the heat away, allowing us to stay nice and warm while we work. If you're wondering on what we're working on here today, well, down on your right-hand side on this pedestal, we have these gorgeous and beautiful Marini patterns that we see down here. We're going to be making one of these pieces that you see with this really nice pattern. All right, well, we've been working on our pattern down here. We have Sarah who's heating the plate up with all our Marinis. Remember that our glory hole is approximately 2,300 degrees, and we're getting the Marinis nice and hot so they stick and fuse together. Once we're done rolling this piece, I'm actually gonna take a step back, and we're gonna learn a little bit about the Marini that I'm talking about and how we make it. As of right now, we're gonna stick to the action. We're gonna roll up the sheet of glass that we now have. Look at that. Doesn't the team make it look so easy? In reality, it's way more difficult than they make it look. Again, we have a professional crew down here. Gabe has over 20 years of professional glassmaking experience. So does Ben down here, and Sarah has over 18 years. So we have a really high caliber team down here as we begin to bring everything together to ensure that everything will touch back nice and easily. Let's take a step back and learn how we make Marini. So on our top screen, we're gonna play a short little video of the Marini making so we can understand where we are at now and how it all began. So on our top screen, we can see that quick replay. The Marini is bundled and stretched out. It almost touches the ground, and then we then break that up to smaller sections, and we begin to chop the Marini up into smaller sections. We will then fill up a whole kiln shell full of these small little Marinis, and then we heat that up, squish it, and do the same process we just saw of rolling the Marinis up. If we try to blow air right now, it's just going to escape towards the very top. We are beginning to seal up and close up any holes that we might have. We are going to add a little bit of glass towards the tip to seal up our bubble. But again, the Marinis are all separate, so there might be still an air bubble around there. We're going to go ahead and get rid of that here very shortly. But one question we always get asked here in the hot shop is the rods that we use here. We use stainless steel rods, which is a very poor conductor of heat, which doesn't ultimately allow the heat to be transferred all the way through. Now, if we inspect the rod that Gabe is working on right now, notice we can see the shiny stainless steel. As we head towards the top, it ultimately turns dull gray and black, and the shiny stainless steel part is no more. We're typically turning where the rod is shiny. If it's shiny, chances are it is safe to turn. I also want to take a second and talk a little bit about some of the equipment we use. Right now, we're going to continue to seal everything up on our core down here, our beautiful, gorgeous Marini pattern. But remember, we are entering a glory hole that's approximately 2,300 degrees. That is where we're getting the glass hot once again. It's powered by natural gas. And unlike the other furnaces here, this glory hole is turned off at night to save energy. Which leads us to the glass furnace. This is where all the glass is actually kept. And when I open this door, it just looks red and orange inside. And I know it's hard to understand what's going on inside, but essentially there is a ceramic pot behind this door. You can think of the furnace as a hot bowl of soup that is always turned on. That furnace is never turned off. It doesn't take any holiday breaks, weekends off, vacations. Oh no, it's always turned on. It's been on for about 7 years straight, non-stop. So the bucket that he's dipping the glass into is just water. We are cooling down the tip so we can continue to manipulate the glass a little bit easier. We will now cover the hole towards the very top. This way, if we try to blow air now, there is no place for the air to escape, and we can inflate the bubble we have just created. Now, to summarize a little bit about Gabe was talking when he came up here, he's letting really that surface to cool down. We're gonna take another layer of molten glass on the layer, just so our piece can be larger. If you're wondering how we make a piece bigger, it's by taking another dip, by gathering more glass. If we try to gather glass right now, notice there was a lot of texture on the surface. Due to the consistency of the glass, it's not gonna flow to every small little nook and cranny, which means an air bubble will be trapped. If we gather right now, we have a lot of air bubbles. That's not what we want. We want to minimize that by ensuring that we have a smooth surface. Now, Gabe had said he let that core cool down, so when he heats it up, only the skin of the glass will get hot, and the skin will become malleable and molten. When someone's sitting on this end, that means they're preparing to blow air through the blowpipe. When we're asked to blow air, we're typically blowing about the same air pressure you use to blow out a candle. So it's not a lot of air, but again, it does vary. Since we've spent a lot of time creating this Marini pattern, want to ensure that there's no dirt or debris. Remember that our Marini sat on a kiln shelf lined with kiln wash to prevent any stickiness or debris or dirt that might be picked up. Even after that, there's sometimes little specks of dust. We want to ensure that won't be on the final piece. So we will use a diamond tip Dremel to get rid of any small little debris. As we continue to work, do we have any questions from the audience? Any questions you might have? I always personally recommend this top balcony. At one point or another, I highly recommend that everyone check the glass making from this top balcony. It's a great view and the best place to take any photos or videos of the action going on. Now that we smooth out the surface, here in a little bit we are going to get ready to take another layer of molten glass. If you're just joining us, well, first of all, welcome to the hot shop. But here in a little bit, Gabe will step in front of the furnace, the 1,000-pound furnace sitting at 2,100 degrees, about the same temperature as molten lava. He's gonna let his core cool down. By letting the core cool down, we are giving ourselves the ability to gather more glass. The colder the core that is, the more glass we can gather, but also we can just maintain more control. So by letting that core cool down, we're gonna do a handful of things, but here in a little bit, this piece will get larger. Remember that this furnace is always turned on. It never takes a break. It's never turned off. And behind that door ultimately lies a giant bowl of hot glass. You can think of it as a bowl of soup. If we gather a little bit too much glass, well, we can do this step you see here of stripping the glass. Now this is what glass blowing is all about. It's all about teamwork. We are now creating the break-off zone. The small little constriction will be the break-off for the piece. So if you're wondering how it will be broken free, with that small little constriction we've created, Emily is there with 2 wooden paddles to shield Gabe from the heat that's radiating off. Ben on the opposite end is blowing air through that blowpipe, expanding the bubble, and Sarah's keeping downward pressure on the rod as Gabe continues to shape the molten glass. Do we have any questions from the audience? Any questions about what you're seeing? I know we're all just enjoying the Museum of Glass. We are just going to be doing a lot more shaping before we move on. But again, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand or shout my name. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. We are, however, just going to relax, watch the live glass making. We are going to continue to blow out and shape our piece, eventually transferring it onto a different rod. So just to take a step back so everyone understands, remember that we're adding a punty, which is the transfer rod. We've made the bottom of the piece still attached to the rod right now will be the top of our vessel. All right, so for those of us just joining down here, we want to welcome you to the hot shop. Remember that we're entering a glory hole here. That's approximately 2,300 degrees. We're using it to soften the glass. Remember, when it's sitting out here, it's cooling down, it's getting cold. At one point, it will no longer be malleable. So if we wish to continue to work on it, we will enter one of these chambers. The one down here is very similar. We begin the pieces on the ends of the benches, but then move to the center. All right, well, the next step we will take is to set our piece into the annealer. The annealer is the oven on your right-hand side with the green number 4. It's currently sitting at 920 degrees. We're gonna go ahead and break our piece off and begin to slowly cool it down. A little tap, look at that. Right, and that makes our beautiful piece here today. Can we give our whole team a round of applause, and of course our gaffer, Gabe, down here. So we are gonna continue the glass making fun down here, but I do wanna let everyone know that the Museum of Glass will be closing in about 30 minutes. I typically say that 30 minutes is a good amount of time to look through the gallery and the store we have. So if you haven't had a chance to check out the rest of the museum, right now is a really good time. If not, stay in your seat. You can stay with us. We're gonna go ahead and continue the glass making fun down here. to finish up the day here, we're just going to be making some small little pieces, as you can see down here with the Museum of Glass Hot Shop crew. So down here on the hot shop floor, we are making a decanter. The next step we will take is to create a punty. Now Sarah down here has gathered glass on a different rod. We're gonna go ahead and transfer it onto a different rod so we can begin to work on the opposite end. Since we created the constriction, we have also thickened the glass. We will pull the thick glass right off, go ahead and trim it right off. So now that we're left with is a nice even thickness all the way around our piece. Now he makes it look like butter, like he's cutting butter, right? But in reality, trimming is super difficult. So many things that you have to remember in that moment. But it does take a long time to be able to trim glass that quickly and also that nicely. We're gonna go ahead and add a handle to our piece. Now we call this a Roman handle because it was very popular during that time period. That's where we get that name from. But we are gonna go ahead and make one of these handles for you, see how it's done and brought together. So if you're wondering how a handle is added to glass, we'll go ahead and see that action right now.